Hey everyone! This time we'll be playing with fire. It's not the first time I've created a fire shader, but back then I used a noise texture and a curve as a parameter, which significantly simplified the whole process. Now we'll try it without such tools and generate a candle flame, which, as always, will have plenty of parameters for further adjustments. So let's get to it. This time, I'll skip the theoretical talk and jump straight into the code. As usual, we'll start by creating a new scene, adding a color rect, then assigning a shader material to it, and finally adding a shader. Just the usual process. So let's right click on the scenes, create new scene, and call it candle. Okay. And right click to the root node, add child node color rect. Very well, and I will change the background to black. It's better for eyes and everything else. And set the size to our usual dimensions, 600 by 400. Okay, and of course material, a new shader material. Click new shader, candle GD shader of canvas item type, and let's put it to the shaders folder and create, and click again to open in the editor, and let's expand the area a little bit. Okay, I'll get rid of everything we don't need, which means the vertex and the light. Deleting them, vertex and light. Okay, this time I might have gone a bit overboard with the number of uniform parameters, because there will be a total of 15, which is definitely above average. However, as you know, I love creating shaders that are highly customizable, so every parameter has its purpose and contributes to the overall look of the final effect. But let's start with the usual ones, resolution and zoom. Okay, uniform, vec2, resolution is vec2 600 and 400 as the dimensions of our color rect, and uniform float. Zoom with the end range starts at 6, for instance, and the zoom factor should go from 1 to, for instance, 20, and the step let's set to 0.01. Very well. As you probably noticed at the beginning of the video, our flame will consist of an upper orange and lower blue part to closely mimic what we actually see in a burning candle. However, that doesn't mean we wouldn't sometimes want a flame of a different color, so both colors will be adjustable. We'll add them as the next two parameters right away. Uniform, vec3, RGB color, flame top color is source color for the color picker in the inspector, and the default value vec3, 1.5 and 0. I think this is some kind of a shade of orange. And for the bottom part, vec3 flame bottom color. Again, the source color, and the default value would be vec3, 0.3 and 1 for something bluish. Let's open the shader parameters in the inspector, and yes, we have these two shades. Perfect. Now we can move on to the basic version of the fragment function. As usual, we'll shift the origin of the coordinates to the center, adjust the aspect ratio, and apply the zoom factor. Let's do it here. So vec2 UV is UV minus 0.5, shifting the origin. Then the aspect ratio UVX is multiplied by resolution X divided by resolution y. And finally, the zoom factor in the code, of course, UV is multiplied by zoom. Okay, both parts of the flame will share the same width, so we'll set the parameter first and then finally create something visible. I'll add another uniform parameter. Uniform float flame width with an range and the initial value 2. Okay, and we should do it from 0.01 to 100 and the step 0.01. Okay, and we'll add it to the code. Since the width value is too high and it would be difficult to adjust a narrow flame, we'll divide it by 10 or multiply by 0.1, which is the same. So float flame is, float width is flame width times 0.1. All right. Now let's set the color of the upper part of the flame, which we'll label as top. Vec3 top is, and let's start at black. 0. As we know, the flame should be limited by its width, so we'll start the calculation using the x coordinate of the current pixel, dividing it by the width value. We'll assign the result to the variable flame, then multiply it by the color, and finally assign it to the internal variable color, which is the output of the fragment function. Okay, so let's continue after the top vector definition. Float flame is, as I said, UVX, and we apply the width, so divided by the width value. Now let's assign a color to the top color accumulator. Top is flame multiplied by flame top color to give it the right shade of orange this time. And finally assigning to the output color is a vector 4 consisting of top and 1 for alpha. Wait for it. Okay, so we have our first visible result, but there is still a long way to go, of course. First and foremost, we want our effect to be symmetrical, so let's use the absolute value. Here it is. Instead of UVX, we will change it to abs UVX. Okay, next we need the flame to start taking shape, ideally depending on the y coordinate, vertical. We can do that, for example, like this. Okay, so after flame I will define the shape. Float shape is, again, absolute value of UVY, and we subtract our currently obtained flame value. Okay, and finally, we'll use the smooth step function to trim the resulting shape so that it doesn't stretch endlessly. Alright, so now we have top is flame times flame top color, and we'll change this flame to smooth step of 0 and 1 for edges, and shape as the value. Okay. So it would be definitely better if we can invert the colors here. So let's subtract the third argument, shape, from 1. 1 minus shape. All right, we are starting to see something vaguely taking shape. It's nothing outstanding yet, but we've definitely headed in the right direction. However, we need to do something about the shape as it's too pointed. Let's add a new parameter called flame curve. Uniform float flame curve with a range and the initial value let's set to 4. And the parameter will go from 0.1 to 10 with the step 0.01. Very well. And now, for a nice shaping, it would be ideal to use the POW or power function, where the new parameter will be the exponent to which we raise the absolute value of the x-coordinate. So where is it here? Flame, and we have abs uvx, and now we wrap POW around it, and the argument would be our flame curve. Wait. This already looks much more like a candle. However, we still need to refine the shape a bit. So let's add a flame shape parameter. They're already piling up. Yeah, as I said, there'll be 15 of them. Float, flame shape, hint range, and the initial value 0.3. And this parameter goes again from 0.1 to, and this time 1 and the step 0.01. All right, and let's use it in the code. Scrolling down and shape, okay, and we will simply multiply this by the flame shape. Very well. We are not done yet, so it doesn't matter that the flame has stretched a bit in the vertical direction. Now, we'll need a parameter that allows us to adjust the saturation of the flame color. Let's call it flame power, because it's not a real saturation, of course. A uniform float, flame power, and a hint range and initial value 0.7. And this time it goes from 0 to 1 with the step 0.01. And in the code, we'll replace the 1. Where is it? Here. 1 in the smooth step function with this parameter. So instead of 1, let's use flame power. All right. I think we already have the foundation of a fairly good looking flame. However, there is one problem. If we change the zoom factor, we can observe that the bottom of the flame stretches endlessly, so we need to cut it off somehow. And as you rightly guess, even this time we'll use a new parameter, which we'll call flame bottom. Uniform float flame bottom, and hint range and the initial value, I think 0.26, that was fine-tuned before by me, so I'll just put it as the default value from 0 to 1 and 0.01 as the step. Okay, and in the code we will add another smooth step function to erase everything below this flame bottom level. And since it's a smooth step, the erasing will be gradual without any sharp cutoff. So here, after the top, we can just multiply the top vector by smooth step, okay, flame bottom, then flame bottom, not blame, but flame times, minus 0.1, and the value is uvy, as we are doing it vertically, uvy, and multiplied by 0.1, another result of fine-tuning. Okay, and it is done. If we change the zoom factor again, we can see that nothing is appearing below that. Perfect. What's next? We can enrich the flame with a bit of internal structure in the color transitions. Let's add a flame gradient parameter. Uniform float flame gradient. Again, the hint range and the initial value 4, for instance, and it goes from 0.1 to 10, and the step, as usual, 0.01, and we will add another line just before the final color assignment. Top will be this time multiplied by uvy plus 6 divided by flame gradient. Okay, this is basically a shift on the vertical axis because we didn't want the flame gradient to go from 0, but from a certain position on the flame structure. Okay, and the last thing for this part of the flame, the orange one, it would definitely be useful to highlight the red component of the fire a bit to enhance a burning effect. So one more parameter, yeah, one more. This time let's call it flame red brightness. Uniform float flame red brightness, hint range, and it starts at 1, sure, and from 0 to 10 and 0.01 as the step. And in the code, it will look like this. We will simply add it to the accumulator. Top is increased by the red component of the top times flame red brightness. Wait. Okay, it seems like the flame is much brighter now. That's okay because at the end we will mix it with the bottom part, which is not there yet, so the resulting color will lose some of their intensity again. Now we can move on to the bluish flame beneath the orange one. First, let's shift the y coordinate because we want to start a bit lower, like this. UVY is decreased by 2 minus flame bottom. Okay, and now we'll perform the same operations as we did for the upper part of the flame. Of course, with a few changes. We'll have slightly different coefficients for shaping, and I'll skip the line that highlights the red color component. So I'll write the corresponding code, this time without comments, as I'd just be repeating myself. Let's do it. Flame is power. Oops. Oh, let's just copy paste, would be faster. And do the changes manually. 2, 3, and omit the red part. Okay, so no definition, just reassignment. Flame curve, flame width in the flame shape, and of course we need to multiply that by 0.5 because we want the shape to be a little bit shrunk, and divide this by 0.5. Okay, and of course we are not working with top but with bottom. So did I already define bottom or not? Guess not. So let's do it here. Vector 3 bottom. Again, it starts at a 0 vector, the black one, and let's fix it. Okay. All right. And of course, we need to change this 01 flame bottom color. By the way, it's not visible because we are still using the top only. So as I said, let's do it now. I will mix them right now. So vec3 color is mix of top, bottom, and as I said, 0.5. Both wave factors are the same, and we will use color right here. Okay, and this is not finished yet, of course. We need to finish the shaping. So bottom, smooth step, flame bottom, UV. Bottom, I think it was 0.25 here. And finally, UV plus 4 and flame gradient. Okay, I think this is correct. And the flame is done. If, for some reason, we don't like the ratio of the orange and the blue parts, we can turn the weighting coefficient, this one, into another uniform parameter and then adjust it in the inspector. However, I think this looks the best as it is. Now, we can try changing various parameters and observe how they affect the final result. So for instance, let's increase the red factor, make it shine more, and work with the gradient a little bit. Increase, decrease the flame bottom. I think it's not necessary, but the flame power, let's make it shine more and shape it and change the curve or the width to white, just a small flame. And of course we can change the colors. Let's reset everything and make it a green flame or purple or anything like this, and the bottom part of course as well. Great. Let's reset everything to default values. Okay, so what have we forgotten? Of course, the flame isn't moving at all. To make the effect more realistic, we should add a slight horizontal waviness and a quick flicker in the vertical direction. This won't be a big problem, and both will be handled by a new function that we'll code right away. But first, let's add the last 4 parameters that will control these animations. Okay, scrolling up, and here's the uniform parameter section. So uniform float in horizontal speed with a hint range and the initial value 0.1, and the speed goes from 0 to 1 with 0.01 as the parameter. That's the first one. Then the second one, uniform float horizontal sway to control how much the tip of the flame would be tilted to the left or to the right. 0.1 again, and let's use the same parameters. Okay, the third one, uniform float vertical speed with a hint range and the default value 0.4, and it goes from 0 to 1 as well, and the step point 0.1, and the final parameter, uniform float flickering speed in range, and I think it starts, or it defaults to 60, and it goes from 0 to 100, and this time we can keep the step as 0.1. Okay, and now the function itself. I did a lot of experimenting here, and it would probably be quite boring to replicate the entire thought process. The key point is that for periodic movement, we use a combination of trigonometric functions to which we set specific frequencies and amplitudes. The resulting code looks like this. Let's write it here. Vec2 flickering, as we'll just changing the UV coordinates, vec2 UV, and let's define the fluctuation first. Fluctuation is sine time times horizontal speed minus UV dot y plus cosine of time times horizontal speed minus uv dot y and multiplied by 0.01. Okay, this is basically, I think I'll just add a return uv here so we get rid of this error. Okay, we define the fluctuation and now the shift in the x and y direction. So uvx is increased by sine of time times horizontal speed multiplied by 3 minus uvy times fluctuation times horizontal sway, all the parameters here, and it multiplies by 0.1, so it's not too much. And finally the Finally, the y coordinate. So UV y, which is basically responsible for the flickering. So fract of sine of time times flickering speed multiplied by vertical speed and times 0.1 divided by 10, and that's it. That should be it. And of course, nothing is happening because we are not using this function yet in the fragment function. Let's do it now. And right before we define the top vector, let's just call UV is flickering of UV and wait for it. Okay, and we are done. I'm not sure if the movement is visible in the YouTube video, which went through some data compression. However, if I increase the parameter values and the zoom factor, you'll definitely see something. So let's first just zoom in. Maybe you can see this flickering now, and if not, I will increase the vertical speed. Now it's jumping a lot more. And I will increase the horizontal sway and the speed. Now I'm pretty sure it is, you can definitely observe that, like a candle in the wind or something. But I'm pretty sure that it is even cool with the default values of the parameters. Anyway, this is the result. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you weren't too bored, as shaping a candle flame isn't exactly the most thrilling spectacle. However, I do think that it's useful to show how such shaping looks in practice and what can be achieved with the right combination of basic functions that shaders offer. So, thanks again, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.